Right now on Upfront.
A city in mourning.
The violence needs to stop.
A Milwaukee police officer shot and killed in the line of duty now demands for action.
It's on all of us to make sure that our city is safe.
This Sunday, state senators, Democrat Lena Taylor from Milwaukee and Republican Van Wanggaard from Racine. What is the solution? The debate just 3 days from Governor Tony Evers' budget address.
Countdown to the primary, 9 days to go.
You can expect nothing less from me as your next Supreme Court justice. Fairness, impartiality.
The race for Wisconsin Supreme Court candidate Jennifer Darrow one-on-one.
And the president to the battleground.
If President Biden runs again, are Democrats behind him?
I think most Democrats are behind him.
Wisconsin, the first post-State of the Union stop. The guests on Capitol Hill looking to send a message. Congresswoman Gwen Moore and former Bucks player Sterling Brown.
This is Upfront with Jaron Jordan and political director Matt Smith.
Thanks for being with us. A difficult week and a difficult week ahead. Milwaukee police officer Peter Jerving will be laid to rest tomorrow.
The 37-year-old officer was shot and killed this past week. Police say after a struggle and an exchange of gunfire with a robbery suspect.
That suspect, 19-year-old Terrell Thompson, also died and had recently faced 2 misdemeanor charges for hit and run. Just hours before the shooting, Thompson was sentenced to probation.
Now, as final funeral preparations are underway, calls for action. State Senators Democrat Lena Taylor from Milwaukee and Republican Van Wanggaard from Racine. Thank you for being with us here today.
Thank you.
You both issued statements shortly after. Senator Taylor, I want to start with something you said that caught our attention. You said we have to ask, what can we do differently? Is it more officers, more resources, more penalties, or more you fill in the blank? As an elected official, this is what keeps us up at night. As you've had some time to reflect in recent days, what is that solution?
You know, I wish that there was a silver bullet, so to say, that I could speak to. There is not one thing that we need to do. I think we have to look at how did we fail in a foster care system, how did we fail, and what we could have done to help parents, you know, an opportunity for a young person to be at a place that they made those choices. What could we do to make sure that our officers are better prepared? We were just talking before we got started that officers didn't have bulletproof vests at one point. So what other, you know, tools can we provide for officers to also be able to be prepared?
Senator Wanggaard, in a statement you said these tragic, senseless, and preventable attacks will continue if there isn't change in the city. What kind of change do we need to talk about?
Well, I think there's a list of things that, and Senator Taylor and I have talked about this, you know, throughout the last few sessions on what do we do to make the biggest impact. And as we look at what's happening here, I have documents in front of me here that I pulled up just in the last couple days about some of the stats. I mean, as an example, speeding tickets, 45% of them haven't been paid. Reckless driving, 77% of them have not been paid. And the judge's response, well, it'll catch up to them eventually. That kind of attitude where there's no consequence for those actions ends up being just, you know, they're just going to continue doing what they're doing.
We know that police departments across the state are facing staffing shortages, funding issues with detectives, investigators, prosecutors are short statewide. Where does the state come in and step in and start to address some of these issues? And is the solution in shared revenue?
I'll start, and then Lena, you can.
I'd love to chime in.
Because I know she loves.
Okay, it's interesting. You guys are on different sides of this on the political aisle. But where's the solution here?
We're finally having chats about shared revenue and how we can direct shared revenue for public safety. One of the problems is when we give shared revenue to the municipalities, it doesn't always go for public safety. We have, if you look at your phone bills that you get, you'll see that there's a police and fire charge on there for police and fire. That doesn't go to police and fire. It used to, doesn't anymore. It's used for general purpose revenue, a lot of these municipalities. So if we're going to do something with shared revenue, we're going to help, and it's going to go towards public safety, police and fire.
You want that in writing?
Well, there has to be a maintenance of effort, so we don't put $10 million in here and then they take $10 million out here. It's got to be that we're adding resources so they can really do their jobs and they can be safe on their job. Milwaukee's problem with their policing here too, they've got a huge liability for their retirement system. And I think, I don't know how many billions they're in the hole, but they stopped paying into that retirement a decade and a half ago. Well, you can't expect it's going to be whole if you're not paying into it. So there's a lot of areas that I got to tell you. Chevy Cavalier Johnson has been in my office 3 or 4 times in the last month, not just to ask for things, but to come in and talk about these issues. Barrett was in my office, I think, once in the entire 12 years I've been in the Senate. So there you go.
So we know that this is an issue facing.
You got to let me chime in on both of those issues. The first is, I think I'll start where the senator stopped. The pension is an issue. When they did Act 10, we have not received, the kind of support we needed because we left fire and police within. So as a result of that, those are huge costs that we have, and it's been 2 decades. We have, funding for shared revenue at like 2003 numbers. So why did they stop paying a decade later? Because a decade before that, the state stopped, frankly, giving us, fully what we really needed. More than anything, we're #1 in tourism, but we don't get back what we give. Not to mention, you mentioned prosecutors, police, the justice system. Frankly, the state takes 70% of the dollars that come in from the justice system, and they give back 30 of that for that system to work. We can't have a system that works effectively.
The governor's going to deliver his budget address on Wednesday. He wants $2 billion for education, shared revenue, 20% of the state's sales tax to go to cities. He also wants the 1% increase to allow Milwaukee. Is the governor's plan going to pass?
What's going to happen is we're going to take his budget and we'll strip out all the policy, and then we will look at rebuilding what that budget is going to be. Are we going to put another $2 billion into the school system when they got billions over the last couple of years that they haven't even spent yet? I don't know. Are those dollars going to be focused towards those young people, or are they going to be put every place else but in the classroom? I mean, these are questions that have to be answered. Do we need to make sure that those dollars continue to flow? Matter of fact, it was really good that he took our idea with the 1 cent out of the 5-cent sales tax, and now he's bringing that forward.
So you like that?
We can maybe get some agreement on that. And for the first time in a long time, I think we got both sides of the aisle willing to sit down and have the conversation.
Is the governor's plan the right plan?
I personally think that we should be doing something with the pension, as I said before, for fire and police, because the truth of the matter is, even with the sales tax, we're ultimately going to find ourselves in the same situation because it will continue to plague the city in the way that it has. So I'm not suggesting that we should necessarily have a sales tax. I appreciate 20% of whatever can be provided, but I can't give up that something needs to be dealt with the pension, because they've left us with this issue.
Just one other thought. Okay, not getting our fair share. I hear this all the time, but other communities do it because they focus on what is government here specifically for. It's not for having, this grandiose idea that, everything else is important but public safety. I got to tell you, as I knock on doors and talk to people, the most important thing to them is having a safe community that they can go out in.
Do you think Milwaukee has ignored public safety?
Well, there are 450 officers short.
Yes, but you've been taking shared revenue for some time, and
they've spent money on a whole bunch of other things too. So what's the priority?
We have many responsibilities. Fire and police have not been our priority. To suggest that that's so is not correct. The city has had to make cuts because of, frankly, the state taking an amount of dollars that has been, I think, unreasonable and definitely, if nothing else, not equitable.
We want to get back to the shooting of police officer Jerving this past week. The suspect in the shooting was given probation just hours before the shooting, the day before the shooting. You are a defense attorney as well, an attorney, you know the law. Is that something that's standard to be given that for a misdemeanor charge?
It's possible.
Okay.
Many misdemeanor charges, people do get placed on probation with many other conditions. What I will say is I don't know his full record and what the judge heard. I don't know those circumstances. I want to believe that the judge looked at his circumstance and made a decision based on what was before the judge.
If you go back to the beginning of this whole process, I mean, I don't know what his prior record was because they haven't unsealed that yet. But I do know that hit and run to an attended vehicle with injury is not a misdemeanor. That is a felony. And it's still a felony and always has been a felony. Hit and run to an attended vehicle with no injury is a misdemeanor. So what they did, the DA's office amended it right away from a hit and run felony to a hit and run misdemeanor, and then read the other one in. And they took away, they extended his signature bond twice, you know, when he didn't show up in court in between. I mean, these are all things that lead to that the carelessness.
But I think it's very difficult
What can I tell you?
to sit here.
Do you think it was preventable? Do you think?
But see, that's what I want
I
to say,
think he should have
Matt.
probably been in jail. He probably should have been handled differently, with having some kind of impact with getting him into an educational progress or a program, if that would be something that would curb this type of.
And that probably needs resources.
But Matt, that's the point that I was trying to make, is that it's very difficult to Monday morning quarterback on a case and a circumstance. We don't know the record. We don't know a number of different pieces that district attorney, just like police officers have discretion on site when they're somewhere.
They do.
Prosecutors have discretion, judges have discretion, and we have to respect that process. And so I don't want to sit here and try to make judgments without all of the facts.
An incredibly important conversation. Democratic State Senator Lena Taylor, Republican State Senator Van Wanggaard. Thank you both for your time and your perspective.
Thank you, Matt.
Great
Jared.
conversation. Thanks for
Appreciate
being here.
Thank you for having me.
Still to come, a countdown to the February primary.
Supreme Court candidate Jennifer Doro standing by next.